Every year, at the end of October, there's this feeling. The air gets colder, the nights grow darker, and Halloween creeps closer. But why does this night feel so different? Where does this tradition come from? What we celebrate today as Halloween has roots much deeper and much older than most people know. To understand Halloween's origins, we need to travel back more than 2,000 years to the ancient Celts and their festival, Samhain. This festival marked the end of the harvest and the beginning of winter, a time associated with death and darkness. But it was more than just a change of season. The Celts believed that during Samhain, the boundary between the world of the living and the dead became thin, allowing spirits to walk among the living. But these spirits weren't necessarily welcome. The Celts believed some could cause harm or mischief, so they lit massive bonfires and wore costumes, not for fun, but to disguise themselves from the spirits. The idea was to blend in, to avoid being recognized by these wandering ghosts. When Christianity spread through Europe, it wasn't long before Samhain began to blend with Christian practices. Around the 9th century, the church introduced All Saints' Day, a day to honor saints and martyrs, which was celebrated on November 1st. The evening before, known as All Hallows' Eve, started to absorb some of the older pagan customs of Samhain. This blending of traditions created what we now recognize as Halloween. Even though the church tried to replace the pagan festival, many of the older practices survived, though they took on new meanings over time. Then, in the 19th century, Halloween took another step toward what we recognize today when Irish immigrants brought their traditions to the United States, where it evolved even further. The tradition of carving pumpkins, for example, comes from an old Irish legend about Stingy Jack, a man doomed to wander the earth with only a carved-out turnip to light his way. When they arrived in the US, pumpkins were more readily available, and that's how the jack-o'-lantern tradition was born. Even the name itself reflects this evolution. Originally, the word Halloween comes from All Hallows' Eve, the night before All Saints' Day. Over time, All Hallows' Eve became Halloween, and eventually just Halloween. Throughout the 1800s and early 1900s, it started moving from a more community-centered festival with bonfires to smaller-scale celebrations, including costume parties where people told ghost stories. But the biggest shift came in the 1920s and 1930s, when Halloween started becoming a holiday more focused on children. Trick-or-treating, a custom that we now see as Halloween's most defining feature, started to spread. This tradition of going door-to-door for treats was based on a much older practice called souling. In medieval times, children would go from house to house offering prayers for the dead in exchange for small cakes or coins. While the purpose may have changed, the act of going door to door for candy on Halloween is centuries old. After World War II, Halloween really took off, especially in the United States. The post-war baby boom led to an explosion of family-friendly celebrations. Communities organized trick-or-treating as we know it today, and businesses quickly saw the commercial potential. Candy companies and costume manufacturers began marketing specifically for Halloween, and it became a major event. In fact, by the 1950s, Halloween had transformed into a holiday focused almost entirely on children. Costume parties, haunted houses, and neighborhood events turned Halloween into an exciting, family-oriented night of fun. In the 1970s and 80s, it experienced a revival of its spooky atmosphere, thanks in large part to horror movies and haunted houses. Films like Halloween and Friday the 13th helped turn Halloween into a night where fear was embraced as part of the fun. Today, Halloween has grown into a billion-dollar industry. In the US alone, Halloween spending is second only to Christmas, generating over $9 billion annually. Costume companies, candy manufacturers, and stores all profit massively from this single night. People now spend on everything from intricate costumes to elaborate home decorations, turning Halloween into a celebration that blends ancient traditions with modern consumerism. While Halloween, as we know it, is most popular in the US, different cultures around the world have their own ways of marking this time of year. For example, Mexico's Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead, celebrates the lives of those who've passed, honoring ancestors with food, altars, and colorful decorations. Though it's distinct from Halloween, the connection between the living and the dead during this time is shared across both traditions. So, next time you carve a pumpkin or put on a costume, remember, you're participating in a tradition that goes back thousands of years.